and welcome to the third S3 BGE literacy lessons. This is the last of the 3 lessons that we've put together. And remember, we've been focusing on grammar, RUI and text annotation activities. Before you go on with your lesson though, you should have been given a link to a Teams quiz. Now it's self-marking, so it shouldn't take you long and you'll instantly get the feedback. And it's just another imagery refresher. I want you to keep going over imagery techniques, and we've put sound effects in there too. Because I just want it to really stick in your mind as much as possible. Okay, so if you pause the video and complete that Teams quiz now. Our starter lesson today is quite a big one, and there's a lot to it. The worksheet that you've got to accompany this video has loads of explanations in it as well. It might be quite useful for you actually to take a picture, a screenshot of that worksheet. And just keep it in your OneNote, because it will be something you can keep referring to from now on. You know, as your teacher, I get really bugged with incorrect use of apostrophes. And so I thought today we would focus a lot on apostrophes, but we can go back over this lesson when we're all back together again as well. So why would we use apostrophes? So the main 2 reasons are for possession or omission. So either when you possess something or you are omitting a letter from a word. But there's loads of different ways that you could use your apostrophe, which is why I wanted to go over some of them today, but there are heaps out there. Here goes. If you're indicating that someone possesses something, you would use an apostrophe at the end of their name before the S. So Derek's ball, Ms. Evans's house, Mrs. Hamilton's lesson. Some people prefer to drop the apostrophe when the name ends in S. I don't, and it will become clear later on why I would probably say not to do that. But if the name already ends in "es" as opposed to "s", then it can sound like "es is", and that's where you would probably drop the S. But Evans's I don't think is a mouthful, so I don't know why you would need to, but some people do. If you were in a group with the same name ending in S, you would add ES, and then if you all own something, you would then add the apostrophe. So the Joneses' car, for instance. If the group already had a specific plural name, which is called an irregular noun, so things like children, teeth, feet, and the group owns something, you just add the apostrophe as normal. The children's classroom, the teeth's roots, the feet's socks. That would probably work as well. Let's move on then. Still a lot to get through. If a plural noun possesses an item, the apostrophe goes after the S, the pupil's classroom. And that's why sometimes I worry that when you are using a name that ends in S and you drop the next S, there might be another name out there which is the same spelling but doesn't end in S, and then it sounds like there's lots of them owning something. I know I'm probably confusing you a little bit, but we can talk about it during the live chat as well. But that's why I would tend to not drop the S for the previous example, but this is how you would write if it was a plural noun all owning something, the pupil's classroom. Now, if you're using a pronoun, you don't use an apostrophe at all to indicate possession. Okay, so hers, its, theirs, his, yours. Okay, I want to focus on that word its because a lot of you bung in an apostrophe no matter what. Okay, if it's to do with like the dog loves its bone, you don't use an apostrophe because that is a pronoun. And to indicate possession, you just use the words its, the same way you would use the words hers. Following on from that then, we've talked about the other purpose of an apostrophe is when you're omitting a letter. So if you're indicating a letter is missing, you use an apostrophe where the letter or letters would have been. So that's where its would have an apostrophe when you're meaning it is. Okay, so when the word its is there, you only use an apostrophe if you're meaning it is. Otherwise, don't use an apostrophe. And here's other examples. I could have done that, so could have done that. I haven't thought of that. I have not thought of that. And the apostrophe is coming in place of the missing letter or letters. Now, Here's the one that drives me up the wall sometimes. If a word becomes plural and you need to add an S, add the S. Nothing else. Don't add an apostrophe. If it's purely to indicate a plural word, leave the apostrophe out. Okay? So if you change the word bananas to bananas, or banana to bananas, sorry, don't add an apostrophe because you're just saying it's a plural word. Apostrophes are only for possession, for owning something, or for omission, for leaving out a letter. Okay? You can go over these again on your worksheet. There are other examples on there, and if you're not sure or if you've spotted an error or something in this lesson, please speak to either me or your class teacher and we will sort it out. So what I want you to do now is pause the video and complete the apostrophes section of the lesson. Now you could either retype on the Word document, or if you prefer to handwrite to practice a bit more, remember practice with an S because you were practicing it, then you can do so and just insert a picture somewhere into the Word document. Let's move on then to reading for understanding, analysis and evaluation. Now we've covered imagery and sound effects, and today we're going to look at a part of sentence structure. Sentence structure is huge, by the way, and we are going to focus on sentence types. Now what do we mean by sentence types? Well, you've got different types of sentence. We're not talking about sentence lengths here, which are different again. Okay, you've got a statement which tells us something like a fact and an opinion. I usually walk to school. It was snowing yesterday. I like bananas. You can have a command sentence. Now, a command sentence usually includes the imperative verb. The imperative verb is a bossy verb. So if you said take this, take would be an imperative. Do that, don't do that, anything like that. It doesn't always work though, but usually has an imperative verb in there. And it's when you're telling someone to do something, you're commanding them. Stop talking, chop the onions, don't do that. We then have an exclamation, and that is used to show shock or surprise, and an exclamation will end in an exclamation mark. We have an ordinary question, which is used to find out information. Do you like sunsets? Then we have the rhetorical question, which is when you ask a question that already has an implied answer. What time do you call this? How could you have been so stupid? And so on. Lastly, you have a minor sentence. Not all small sentences are minor sentence. A minor sentence is an incomplete sentence because it doesn't contain a verb. It's usually used to really focus your attention on something. So if you just had the one-word sentence, wow, that would be a minor sentence. Again, it might be useful for you to pause the video here and take a screenshot and add it into your OneNote somewhere because it's something you can always refer back to. Can you now go on to identifying the sentence types in your worksheet? So pause the video, do that now. Okay, we're not going to analyse sentence structure this week because I just want you to fully understand how to identify a different type of sentence and go back to the page where it shows you what the function of the sentence is. Let's move on then to annotating our text, and this time we are going to look at an article all about Strictly Come Dancing. And this is more like the kind of text you would do in an exam anyway, so it's quite good to focus on this one. Remember, it's an important skill where you identify techniques and engage with the text. When you are doing this activity, you could use the drawing tools and insert text boxes to add your notes. So pause the video and do your annotation activity on the worksheet now. Let's move on into our extension activity. And what I want you to do is go to that article you've got just now and just fully annotate it for all the techniques, not just imagery and sound effects, which is what we've worked on this week, but previous knowledge as well. Think about word choice, for example, formal, informal language. Can you see any jargon? Find as many different techniques as you possibly can. And remember, I will be able to look at it, or Mrs. Smith, if you've got Mrs. Smith as your teacher, and give you some feedback on your annotations. So, Over this week then, we've covered some various aspects of grammar. We've looked at imagery, sound effects and sentence types. We've annotated 3 different texts, and if you've done any of the extension activities, you've brought all that together to fully annotate your final text. I hope this has been useful for you, and when we go back to look at Rui and textual analysis, hopefully the stuff you've learned today you can then apply to that. Bye for now.